So let me ask you, would you give a lung to your worst, most hateful enemy? Who was a smoker? We already got nose all over the place. I'm not even finished. They were a smoker, and it's likely that when you give it, they're going to keep on smoking anyhow. They barbecue there, they're going to barbecue yours. Would you? For us, that would be ridiculous. We see that as a waste. But for God, it's the demonstration of infinite love. God's love is manifest. Not just warm, fuzzy feelings, not just nice, well-spoken, honey-laden words, but he puts his love into action. He demonstrates his love in a person, his son, Jesus Christ. Paul says God demonstrated his love to us in this, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. John goes further as he shares the greatest example of what love is. Look at verse 10. He says, and this is love. Not that we have loved God, but that he loved us and sent his son to be the propitiation for our sins. What John is saying is that real love takes the first step. God doesn't wait for us to find him. He doesn't even wait for us to be looking for him. He doesn't wait for us to show some sign that we're going to be open or receptive. He doesn't even wait for us to start praying when we're fallen deep in sin, away from him, in darkness, going to death. He takes the first step. He comes after us. He goes looking. He goes searching until he finds us. This is love. Not that we love God, but that he loved us. He took the first step. We look for signs that it's safe to love. We look for some indication that feelings are mutual. We want to make sure we don't put ourselves out there. Now, I'm not going to look like I'm all sprung. And you're not doing anything on your end. So they do a little, and we do a little. Right? But not so with God. He dives in head first without any certainty. To us, it's recklessness. But to God, it's an opportunity to demonstrate infinite love. It says he sent his son to be a propitiation. We talked about that last week. That means he sent his son to be the means of atonement. In other words, there was no means for us to come back in reconciliation with God because the wages of sin is death. Because of sin, you're supposed to die. There's no way out of it. The justice of God demands that death should take place when sin has taken place. So we can't get back to God because of our sin. But God, in his love, not only did he take the first step, but he sent his son so that he could die, so we would not have to die. He sent him to be the means of atonement. So John is saying that real love makes a sacrifice. I want us to stop for a minute and think about all those folks that have been saying, I love you. Jody, I love you. I want us to think about all the people who we claim that we love. Not just romantically, but our husbands, our wives, our children. Do we love like this? Real love makes a sacrifice. I read a story that was written. The book was called Miracle on the Kauai. And it tells a story of a group of Scottish POWs who were held by the Japanese. And the Japanese were forcing them to build a railroad track, a railroad. And these men, after being in captivity for so long, they were degrading into barbarous behavior. It started to become a survival of the fittest. I'll get you so that you don't have to get me first. So it wasn't just the captors against the captives, but it was the captives against each other. Everybody was trying to find a way to make sure that they were able to survive. But one day, all of that changed. Routinely, as they worked, they would come to checkpoints where they would have accounting and assessment of the tools and inventory. And so this particular day, they were counting the shovels. And it was found by the Japanese officer that a shovel was missing. And so the officer's enraged. He thinks somebody has a shovel that's trying to come up with some way to escape. So he's enraged. He says, I want that shovel. I want that shovel now. Where's the shovel? No one's moving. Everyone seems to be oblivious as to what happened to the shovel or what shovel he's talking about. But then he pulls out his weapon. He starts shooting and he says, I'm going to kill you all unless the person who stole the shovel comes forward. They knew he was serious. So at that point, one of the prisoners stepped forward. And when he walked to the front, indicating that he was the man, the Japanese officer put his gun away and picked up one of the shovels and cruelly beat him to death. His fellow prisoners, stunned, picked up his body, and they carried it until they worked some more and came to the next checkpoint. When it was time to do the inventory again, they counted all of the shovels and found that they were all there. No shovel had been missing. It was a miscount. The word spread like wildfire through all of the ranks of the captives as they heard that even though this man was innocent, he put his life on the line to save them from death. The men were never the same again. Never again did they fight each other, but now they treated each other like brothers. It went so far that when the allies came in victory and they came to swoop down where those Japanese were held out, and the officers knew for certain that they were going to die, those bony skeleton POWs went and stood in front of their captors. They stood between them and the Allied forces and said, this is not a time for killing. No more hate. It's time to forgive. These men had witnessed true love. Love that makes a sacrifice. And this is what the true Christian encounters. This is what happens in the life of the true believer, the one who really comes into that inner circle of fellowship. We're able to see the sacrifice of Jesus for us. He made the ultimate sacrifice. And when we encounter that love, we're changed. by it, we're never the same again. And this now is why John calls to the Christians then and Christians now to follow this example of love. Look at verse 11. Beloved, if God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. We've got to do the same. We now need to turn around and show each other the love that we've been shown. But we can't do it if we've never really encountered that love for ourselves. We're not knowing God and have not been born of God if we don't love in this way. So how does God love that we need to follow, that we need to copy? His love is manifested. It's more than words. It's demonstrated. So John said, if you see your brother in need and you don't help him, how can you say you love? He says, brethren, let us not love in just words, but let us love in action and in deeds. God's love is a love where we give our most precious gifts to our most hated enemies. Now this is more than a call to stewardship. This is a call to ultimate surrender. We give our most precious gifts. Oh, we don't just, You know, when you used to be forced to say sorry when you were, sorry. No, we don't just give to our enemy so we can say, oh yeah, you know, I still say hi to her. Please. No, we give our most precious gift to our most hateful enemy. Love, God's love, loves in spite of the risk of rejection. Do you know this is the reason why many of us are not loving? We have a mind like we want to love, but we're so scared that we're going to be rejected. They're going to laugh at me. They're going to think I'm this. They're going to think I'm that. What? If I go and make things up, he's going to think that it's always going to be me. I'm always. Right? Right. What if I try to make things right and this person blows up in my face and makes me look like a fool? Yes. Real love loves in spite of the risk of rejection. Real love loves first. It takes the first step. Are you in a relationship, in a marriage that's gone bad, that's gone wrong? Are you estranged from some friend or relative or coworker? And it's been going on and on and on? Stop waiting for someone to come and say sorry to you. Real love takes the first step. And finally, real love makes a sacrifice. God's love, Jesus' love, is radical, self-sacrificing, self-renouncing love. I give up my rights. I give up my desire to be first. I give up my pride. What I see is my respectability and my honor and my dignity. I give it up. I lay myself down. I make a sacrifice. I sacrifice myself. That's God's love. That's real love. And here's my last point. Let's read verse 12. Last verse. Not much to say about it. But he says, no one No one has ever seen God. God is invisible. No one has ever seen him. Then he says, if we love one another, God abides in us. Do you hear that? And his love is perfected in us. The other place where John says no one has ever seen God is in the Gospel of John, chapter 1 and verse 18, when he says, no one has ever seen God except God, the one and only Son, came to make him known. In other words, what he's saying is, his main point is, no one has ever seen God. God is invisible, meaning that God can only be seen by representation. God has to be revealed through some medium. And first and foremost, when no one had seen God, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, came from the bosom of God to reveal God, to manifest God, so that when we saw him, we could see God, and by seeing him, we were able to know God's heart. God is a God of love, and we see it in the face of Jesus. But now, John is saying, it's our turn. God is invisible. How can a world who doesn't know him know him? Because he abides in his people, his real people. We reveal him by representing him. When we love, we show the world who God is. No, more than that. We show the people in our household who God is. We show our wives and our husbands and our sons and our daughters. We show them who God is when we love. God is looking for a way to make himself known through us. So we've got to follow his example of love. This is most important. Let me ask you today, how are you known? When people think of you, what words come to mind? Is it love? Or is it, he is critical, she's judgmental, he's superior, she's nasty, he's messy, she's bitter, he gossips? And I'm not just talking about negative traits. Even positive traits are not enough. He's smart, she's hip, he's fly, she's attractive, he's wealthy. So what? That is not enough for God's people who have been born of God and are knowing God. When people think of us, they ought to say, he's loving. She's loving. That's the word that you come from. That's how the world knows who God is. What about when people think about our church? What comes to their mind? Those are the people that go to church on Saturday? Those are the people who don't eat pork. Those are the people who think they know it all. Somebody told me that someone asked them, do I have to get a college degree to be an Adventist? negative traits, it's not enough to even be defined by lesser positive traits. Like the people who have the truth. The people who understand prophecy. The people who are extremely gifted. And all this may be true, but Paul said, though I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, and have not love, I have become a sounding brass or tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so I can remove mountains, and have not love, I am nothing. So what do they think about when they think of us? We've got to make love our highest value so that we're defined by it. We need to think about love when we're choosing our leaders. We don't need to be thinking about the letters they have behind their name, their years of experience, how many years they've had this position. No, we need to think, is this person a person of love? Because they're going to represent us. We need to think about love when we're planning evangelism. Not just the truth we want to share, but the love we want to share. We have to make love our highest value, what's most important to us. Because John says, after all, it is the greatest